Thank you, Sandy, for that beautiful introduction. Morning. Morning. I'm Jim Black. I'm the service leader today. And as we're nearing the solar equinox, we can pause to reflect on the gift of energy the sun provides through the solar panels here at the Fellowship and in other ways, even on this cloudy day. The Climate and Democracy Group, Third Act, founded by Bill McKibben, would like to make every day Sunday, that's 2 words, S-U-N, new word, D-A-Y, and rise up for the sun-powered plants. So we should all rejoice with that. And it's our custom to invite visitors and people who haven't been here for a while to stand if they feel comfortable and introduce themselves. Does anyone feeling courageous enough to introduce themselves? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ken Yeska. My wife's name is Virginia. We were here once before, and we're back.
Welcome back. Yeah.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce to you my Aunt Sharon Grassie. And this is my cousin Kim. And Sharon is up here with her husband Joel, and they're back from Alabama, back in Door County.
Oh,
And Kim is up here visiting with me, so all cousins and family all back together.
family reunion. Welcome back. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Hello.
I'm Janet. This is my first time here, and been up here in Door County for a long, long time, but I've just relocated, or located here.
Oh, well, welcome. Oh, I know.
I've been here before.
Yes, we know that.
No doubt. And we have some special guests with us today. So on behalf of the Outreach Steering Committee, I would like to introduce representatives from our partner organizations who are here today to get their checks.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so Sam Nelson, please stand if you don't mind, from the Door County Housing Partnership.
Welcome.
Sam. Thank you. And then we have Cindy Trinkner Piat from the Executive Director of the Northern Door Children's Center.
Welcome.
And Jeff Lutzy from the Climate Change Coalition was supposed to be here, but he had a family emergency. So I don't even want to say we have the next best thing. I think we have the best thing, the founders of the Door County Climate Change Coalition.
Yeah, our own dick, yeah.
And then just a reminder, I know there have been a couple of announcements. Immediately following the service, we're going to do a photo. Anybody who is interested is welcome to be part of that photo where we present those big giant checks to our partners. We're going to do it outside if the weather holds up. If it does start to rain, we'll stay in here and do it. But hope that everybody just, is willing to go outside and be part of that photo. It won't take more than a few minutes, and then you can get back to coffee.
And that'll be right after the post loop?
Immediately after service.
Very good. Okay. Yes, thank you. Anyone else? No? Very good. So if you could take this moment to make certain that your cell phones and other noise-making devices are turned off. On the back of the order of service, there are announcements. If anybody has any additional announcements or additions, Carl will bring the mic around.
I want to thank you for putting into Sarah's announcements midweek and into the bulletin an announcement about Sunday. And that is an effort by Third Act, which is the senior citizen part of Bill McKibben's 350.org. And it's marvelous to be in a fellowship where we have solar in our backyard. And it's marvelous to be part of CCCDC, the Climate Change Coalition of Door County, which has now, I think, is at 30 or 31 solar installations that we've gathered this spring and summer. And the final part of this message is that Bill McKibben, who is kind of the guru leader of all things climate change, has said this week for the first time that he's mildly encouraged.
Wow.
And it's because of the rapid expansion of solar across the world, and mostly not in the United States, but also in the United States. So celebrate Sunday. Even through the clouds, there's a sun up there. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Anna Knapp, and to further your announcement there and our theme of Sunday, I did see that on Gibraltar School Board's agenda for tomorrow night, there is an agenda item marked solar panels. I have no idea what the discussion is, but I want to encourage you to go onto Gibraltar's website today, find the school board members' email addresses, and let them know how the community supports this. Thank you.
And just a quick reminder, today is Third Sunday, the day that we traditionally collect for our community partners. And our community partners for the current fiscal year are the same partners we've had last year, the Housing Partnership, Children's Center, and Climate Change Coalition. So what we collect today in the baskets goes towards that fundraising effort for their grants, but you can also make a donation anytime online or is a check designated for community partners. Thank you.
Good morning, Maria Thompson. I almost said Maria Pape. That was weird. I just want to say a very special thank you for everyone who purchased the crafts that I had out in the lobby area. I understand we raised $250 for the food pantry, and I cannot wait to share it with my daycare children. So thank you so much.
And I have just a quick announcement. There will not be a talk back today because of the time constraints. So right afterwards, we'll be handing out the checks and then gathering for coffee. So, okay. That's it. Our speaker today is the Reverend Scott Alexander. And when I was sort of Googling him, I was amazed at how much he has done in his lifetime for people. He has been active community leadership, having been on boards of many nonprofits, including Planned Parenthood, 3 separate community YMCAs, Rotary International, several AIDS HIV service organizations, and MAPS, a nationwide adoption agency for older children, which are hard to place, which I think is pretty cool. And then he did 5 coast-to-coast bicycle rides for charity. Raised over $250,000 for nonprofits doing so. He's authored 5 books, and he has a long list of awards, so pretty impressive. So we'll welcome Reverend Alexander.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here in this cozy space of yours. You know, in Mequon, we have a replica of an 1880 Dutch barn, 8-sided Dutch barn, beautiful, beautiful structure if you haven't been there. But I'm delighted to be here with you. Had a beautiful 2-hour plus drive up from my home in Sheboygan this morning. I'm glad the Packer game doesn't start until 1 o'clock because none of you are tempted to be there doing that. So I'm glad you're all here. It's my delight to be with you in Door County today. My opening words come from poet Brian Andreas. It's not what you first think. There is no effort of will, no firm resolve in the face of this thing called living. There's only paying attention to the quiet each morning while you hold your cup in the cool air, and then that moment you choose to spread your love like a cloth upon the table and invite the whole day in again. Our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit, 347. Please rise as you are able. Oh, chalice first. Yes. There it is.
And I will ask Mark Richards to come up and light. Chalice. The ritual of our faith reminds us, our subtle and crashing about beings, that we are part of a collective, a community of care and connection, courage and questions, sacred and scared together. Thank you. And now hymn 347.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power,
And if we can remain standing for the unison affirmation and the doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. Now, this is the time in our service where there's an opportunity to share a joy which may be lifting you up, or a concern to share to lighten its burden. If you share about somebody else, make certain that you have their permission, since this is being broadcast. And Carl again will bring around the mic.
I have to put my Sunday jacket on.
Oh.
Hi, my name is Gwen Gray Boys, and I have a joy. I have waited a long time and been declined by several installers for solar panels on our house. But they were up. It took about 2 weeks. It's a very interesting little design. Took about 2 weeks, and on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, the WPS fella came and commissioned our panels, and I had about 4 hours of input to the grid. Since then, it's been a little cloudy, but they are struggling but doing their best. So it was a little bit like Christmas morning when you run downstairs and Santa left you a present but forgot the batteries.
Cindy Nelson from the Social Justice Committee. It is my joy to tell you, Maria, that we spent all that money. So the food shelf has, as you know, I think I've announced before, one of the things that they cannot get is Ensure. And so all these little people that Maria teaches are providing Ensure for all of us older people. But once again, I want to thank you for your contributions, and a gentle reminder that when you shop, it's nice if you also shop for our food shelves. Regardless of how often we fill them, there are still people that need that food. So once again, cereal, snacks, canned fruit, canned vegetables. Thank you.
Good morning, Bruce Nelson, and this is a joy for me, but it's something as a congregation we should all be very proud of, because about 3 years ago, with the help of the Smythes pushing for it, we decided as a congregation to put solar panels. That has happened. They worked great. I could give you all kinds of numbers, but as of this morning, we have sent 25 million watt hours to the grid, and we've reduced the CO2 by 17.8 tons, all of which means something to somebody, I guess. But more close to home, we are saving the congregation about $1,000 a year on our electric bill. So thank you as a congregation. We should all be very proud of that.
I'm sorry to say that, that, as most of you know, I'm not as bright as Gwen is standing here. But I wanted to we're very pleased that Wilma and I are going to make it under the wire on installing solar also in the next month or so. So we're happy to be able to do that.
I
have a joy I didn't realize I had until just a second ago. I looked over and here my neighbor is sitting next to me, one step over. I don't think she wants to be introduced, and maybe she does. But it's a joy to have her join us today. She's a wonderful person. I hope that later on, Judy! Judy Lyons is with us today, and I just discovered that. Now, the dashboard of my truck says Judy Lyons. So when you read her name tag, it's Judy Lyons, and she's a delightful person to know.
In case you can't tell, I love talking into a microphone. Hi, I'm Anna Knapp, and this is, as I've told you, this is Melon's senior year, and she is still a Girl Scout, and this community has given so much to her troop that you are being recognized by the Girl Scouts of the Northwestern Great Lakes for everything that this community has done for her Girl Scout troop and also for Girl Scouts across northern Door County. So a little thank you comes out to you from the council, and I will leave this with Sarah to display.
Okay. Thank you. Now it's time for the offertory. As we gather in the spirit of love and justice, we recognize that the gifts we share, our time, our talents, and our resources, help sustain this beloved community. Your generosity fuels our mission to nurture spiritual growth, promote compassion, and work for equity within our community. Whether you give today or have given before, you know your contribution is a thread in the fabric of our shared values. Let us give with open hearts and a vision of being more connected. A reading from the 14th Dalai Lama. Love and compassion are the true religions to me. We can reject everything else, religion, ideology, and received wisdom, but we cannot escape the necessity of love and compassion. This then is my true religion, my simple faith, love and compassion. In this sense, there is no need for temple or church or mosque or synagogue. No need for a complicated philosophy, doctrine, or dogma. The purpose of all major religious traditions of the world is not to construct big temples on the outside, but create temples of goodness and compassion inside in our hearts. Our own heart, our own mind is the temple. The doctrine is compassion. Love for others and respect for their rights and dignity, no matter who or what they are, Ultimately, these are what we need. So long as we practice compassion and love in our daily lives, there is no matter if we are learned or unlearned, whether we believe in Buddha or God, or follow some other religion or none at all. As long as we have compassion for others and conduct ourselves with restraint out of a sense of responsibility, there is no doubt we will be happy. Only the development of compassion and understanding for others can bring us this tranquility and happiness we all seek. The more we care for the happiness of others, the greater is our own sense of well-being. Cultivating a close, warm-hearted feeling for others automatically puts the mind at ease. It is the ultimate source of success in life. Reverend Alexander chose those words, and I think they're wonderful. So we'll take a moment of silence to open ourselves up to his message.
Early on the morning of August 14th, 1942, Nazi soldiers surrounded the Jewish ghetto in the town of Bobowa, Poland, and began rounding up all the men, women, and children. Terrified and still in his pajamas, 12-year-old Samuel Oleiner, here's a picture of him. I was going to project it up, but you don't have projection. Can you see his picture? Samuel Oleiner hid on a roof and watched the terrible chaos below. In his own words, this is what happened to him next. After several hours, which seemed like a lifetime, I escaped from the ghetto. Peasants along the way told me what had happened. The trucks had taken the others, including my entire family, to the forest. There, the Nazi soldiers forced them to undress in the most vile and humiliating way, and then made them walk about 60 feet across huge planks laid across a mass grave. They then shot them and watched them fall into the grave. Oleiner went on, it took 18 hours to kill 1,000 people and bury them with a thin coat of soil. After that, he writes, I wandered around the countryside for 3 days, dazed and in disbelief. I slept in barns or in fields and ate food off the land. Finally, I decided to go across the hills to a village of Bystra, where a Catholic woman named Belwina Paitruch lived. Belwina knew my family from before the war. When I knocked on the door that night, Belwina immediately recognized me. She knew what had happened in Bobowa. She saw how scared and disheveled I was, took me in, comforted me, hugged me, fed me, and offered to let me sleep in her attic. As I climbed the stairs, Belwina said, crying, you poor boy, I will help. You must live. Belwina changed my name and taught me how to pretend to be a Catholic and helped me find a job at a nearby farm. And thus it was that I survived the war. And then he writes, Belwina Paitruch's act of kindness, compassion, and bravery not only saved my life, but formed my life. I emigrated to the United States, became a sociologist, and spent my career working to understand what motivated altruists like Belwina and the hundreds of thousands of other people during the war who put the welfare of others alongside of their own. And what did Samuel Oleiner, the sociologist, discover about compassion and altruism in his career? After he and his research team from the Altruistic Personality and Pro-Social Behavioral Institute, which he founded at Humboldt State University in Northern California, they interviewed more than 1,500 of what have come to be known as the righteous Gentiles, those brave, non-Jewish Europeans who risked everything and endangered their own lives to rescue Jews from the murderous Nazis. He concluded there was one defining human quality they all shared, and that was simply empathy. It was the one defining quality, empathy, pure and simple, that made these people compassionate and brave. Again, here's Samuel Oleiner in his own words. We found a clear correlation between empathy and altruistic behavior. These helpers simply could not stand by and see others suffer. Altruists, unlike bystanders who did not help, had internalized an ethic of caring and social responsibility, which they had learned from their parents and other adult models. And then he concludes, they all shared this capacity for love and compassion. I am, of course, persuaded that empathy is an essential gate to the pathway of the holy city of your own life. If you're ever going to discover the holy city of your own life, one of the gates that you enter that through is that of empathy. Again, Samuel Oleiner. Moral behavior is the consequence of empathy. Caring for others, a strong attachment to the moral community, and an ethical obligation to all life. Reaching out to others at considerable personal risk, as Belwina Pajciuc did to me as a terrified boy, and as many, many others have done, has been the force behind much in the world that is good. It has saved innumerable lives and inspired acts of generosity and heroism. Now, when I first formulated this sermon, I must admit I thought that what I would want to preach to you today was about the quality of compassion. Compassion seemed like such, as Dalai Lama pointed out, such a foundational human quality. But the more I thought about compassion, as did Oleiner and his theme, I realized that in fact empathy is the spiritual prerequisite for compassionate acts. It is people with real empathy in their hearts for their human beings who are then motivated to act in good ways. Said simply, it is empathy which empowers us to be good and caring human beings. It is empathy which leads to concrete acts of altruism. But with this said, the question becomes, what precisely is empathy? And perhaps of equal importance, is empathy for others something that we can cultivate in our spiritual and emotional lives? Well, let me begin by defining empathy by looking at its etymology as a word itself. The English word empathy comes from the Greek word empatheia, which literally means feeling into. Empathy, then, is the quality of feeling into or feeling with, as several authors I consulted put it, feeling with or into the situation of another. This is a much stronger human connection to another than sympathy, which I think is a quality of feeling from a distance. I feel sympathy for you as opposed to feel empathy with you. While sympathy is an important level of human caring, empathy goes deeper and motivates us to actually do something tangible to relieve the suffering and dangers that others face. I like the way my colleague, the Reverend Richard Gilbert from Rochester, New York, puts all of this. Empathy, which is feeling the feeling of others, is at the core of kindness. It is the irrational root of ethics. It is the central ingredient in human compassion. The word compassion, he writes, comes from the Latin com, meaning together, and pati or piti, meaning to suffer. Thus, the word literally means to suffer together. In German, the word means feeling the misfortune of others. There are times, he writes, when our only response to another's pain is to share it. The old quote, sorrow shared is sorrow halved, is an old German saying. And then Gilbert ends. Empathy then comes from the feeling of deep sympathy for another, and it is accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the pain or remove its cause. Sympathy, feeling pity, turns to empathy, feeling with, and finally issues an action to serve the needs of the neighbor, unquote. And empathy at its best is not so much a complicated intellectual process as it is a simple emotional one. I'm reminded of the story about a 9-year-old girl who was sent by her mother to fetch a loaf of bread from a store that was a short distance down her street. When the 9-year-old had not returned home with the bread after half an hour, the mother grew concerned. Just as she was about to set out to see what had become of her daughter, the girl bounded in the door with the loaf of bread. "What on earth kept you so long?" the mother asked. The daughter answered, "Well, on the way back from the store, I came upon a boy who had fallen off his bike and hurt his leg. I had to stop to help him cry." Empathy, then, pure and simple, is the quality of compassionately feeling with or feeling into another person's predicament or pain. And because of this close identification of what the other person is going through, it causes us to do something kind or compassionate about it. So empathy in here leads to goodness through your hands and your eyes and your mind and your soul and your lips. And the absence of empathy in the human heart, conversely, can lead to great human evil. And I am saying this in our dangerous, dangerous, dangerous time right now in America. I had a wise old ministerial colleague on Cape Cod. His name was the Reverend Peter Fleck. Did any of you know of him? He wrote a couple of books. He ran all of the Rothschilds' banking interests in the United States, but he was also a UU minister. And as he lay on his deathbed, he had an extended conversation with our colleague from Provincetown, and he said to her, "I have become convinced that human evil is only possible when you look into the eyes of another human being and do not see God there." As a Unitarian Universalist committed to the theological idea of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which has been one of our benchmark statements, I am persuaded that this is true. If we do not see our common humanity when we look into another's eyes and lives, then we can only then do great evil to one another. One painful example of the evil that can happen when empathy is absent happened a while ago when I was living in Washington, D.C. One Friday afternoon at rush hour, an emotionally distraught woman had climbed over the railing. There's a high bridge on Interstate 95 over the Rappahannock River, just south of Washington. And she was despondent. As a state police negotiator tried to talk her into his arms, impatient motorists, eager to get home for dinner and a glass of wine, began yelling, "Jump, jump," which she did. Let me flip this theological and ethical observation back to the positive, for that's really where I want to take you this morning. Another positive way of saying all this is that human goodness and compassion blessedly can happen and do happen when we look into the eyes of another human being and see God there. I was also more recently in Washington, D.C. I lived in Cleveland Park, and there we have bridges across, deep bridges built by the WPA during the Depression. My partner and I came on a despondent woman clinging to the outside of the rail of a bridge. It was about a 150-foot drop. Instead of my Rappahannock story, there were 3 good people working with her. We stayed away. Finally, all the police and ambulances arrived, and everyone behaved themselves, and they got her over the railing and saved her life by compassionate feeling with her. It was an amazing moment of empathy and caring. Similarly, when Belwina Pychuk saw that boy standing at her door in 1942, she saw not some subhuman creature to hate or to be indifferent about, but simply she saw a fellow precious human being that she knew she had to protect. So what does all this have to do with us in our ordinary day-to-day lives? How can we, in our routine lives, cultivate greater empathy in our hearts and in our lives for others? Well, the good news is that there's a lot of evidence that empathy is a natural human quality that can be cultivated. First, it seems that we are all naturally born with ample amounts of it. In his wonderful book, Emotional Intelligence, Dr. Daniel Grohlman asserts that all human beings come into the world with a strong, empathetic response. I quote him, "The roots of empathy can be traced to infancy. Virtually from the day they are born, infants are upset when they hear another infant crying. Infants feel empathetic distress even before they fully realize that they exist apart from other people. A response that is the earliest precursor, he concludes, of empathy." And Dr. Harvey Hornstein, in his important little book, Cruelty and Kindness, asserts that parents, teachers, and other positive role models who model empathetic and compassionate behavior in their living can and do produce children who are more altruistic and empathetic. It is a learnable quality. He quotes, "The development of empathetic, altruistic dispositions in children is very much contingent on the quality of parental behavior that the child observes. Parents who shower their children with rewarding squeals, kisses, and hugs after they witness acts of generosity by those children are more likely to raise empathetic, altruistic children than those who are more coolly dispassionate about such benevolent gestures." And again in his interviews with the righteous Gentiles who saved Jews during World War II, Samuel Oleiner discovered that these brave and empathetic individuals did in fact learn empathy from their parents. Quote, "My parents taught me," this is one of the people he interviewed, "My parents taught me to respect all human beings," said one rescuer. "My parents taught me discipline, tolerance, and service to other people when they were in need." I'm honored to tell you that when I wrote this sermon several years ago, I was not born with the shyness gene. So I decided to call Samuel. First, I sent him the sermon. I looked up his email address at Humboldt State. I sent him my sermon. And then I found his office number, and I dialed it. He didn't answer. No, he didn't answer. But he called me back the next day, and he said, "Reverend Alexander, this is Samuel Oleiner. I so enjoyed your sermon." And then as we talked more, he still had his very heavy Polish accent. He's gone now. He died 4 years ago. He told me he liked my sermon, and in his very thick Polish accent, which I won't try to imitate again, he said, "I'm very much an optimist about human behavior. We know that it is easy to teach prejudice and hatred. Individuals and communities of people successfully do it all the time. Look at America right now. They are being taught hate by the highest offices in the land." But Oleiner went on to say, "I am passionately convinced that we also can teach altruism and empathy at home and in our schools, where we have a captive audience. We can teach children to think and act empathetically and compassionately." So empathy, I really believe, is something that we can instill in ourselves and in our young people simply by exhibiting that behavior. You know, kids have 100% perfect crap detectors. You say be good for people and then you aren't, they pick that up. They have 100% crap detectors, but they also have detectors for truth and authenticity. And if they hear us articulating compassionate values and see us treating others with respect, compassion, and care, it will stick. And there's another important piece to all this empathy equation, and that is theological beliefs and religious principles. In her very important book, The Great Transformation, The Beginning of Our Religious Traditions, historian Karen Armstrong asserts that in the 9th to 2nd century BCE, before Jesus was on the scene, the so-called axial age, 4 distinct religious and philosophical traditions, quote, that have continued to nourish humanity to the present day: Confucianism and Taoism in China, Hinduism and Buddhism in India, monotheism in Israel, and philosophical rationalism in Greece. She said all moved in response to the violence and inhumanity of their time to articulate, quote, a new universal ethic of empathy and compassion toward all human beings everywhere. I quote her. The axial age was pivotal in the spiritual development of humanity. The prophets, mystics, and philosophers and poets of the axial age taught a spirituality of empathy and compassion. They insisted that people must abandon their egoism and greed, their violence and unkindness, and embrace respect for the sacred rights of all persons. And then she concludes, each tradition developed its own formulation of the Golden Rule. You've seen those lists of the Golden Rule in every religion? It's universal. The ethic of reciprocity, axial age. The axial traditions all taught that if people behaved with kindness and generosity to their fellows, they could save the world. Now, we as Unitarian Universalists, we flow directly out of this universal ethic. We flow directly out of that, and out of the ethic of Christianity, true Christianity, which followed. Our spiritual and ethical roots in this tradition are primarily Judeo-Christian and humanistic and rational. And as a faith, we have always taught the importance of compassion and connection between persons everywhere. And you've seen our new value grid, love at the center. Well, you might as well put the word compassion at the center of our faith. Love, compassion, same idea to me, same idea to the Dalai Lama. Empathy is indeed a part of what we call ourselves. We are Unitarian Universalists. Universalists who, for the 500 years since our founding as a spiritual tradition, have seen and affirmed a precious and indissoluble universal connectedness between all persons. It is our universalism that drives our empathy. Everyone is holy. Everyone is a child of God. And look further, if you will, at the 8 guiding principles, the new values of our faith. Ours is a religious tradition, outward-looking mostly, of human empathy, compassion, and connection. Indeed, one can say, I think, that the primary purpose of our religion is to cultivate empathy. The primary mission of our religion is to cultivate empathy and the compassion that goes with it. But we live in such a crazy time. I'm going to show you one more graphic. There are 2 books out now by conservative Christians. One is called The Sin of Empathy, and the other by a Christian podcaster, What is Toxic Empathy? Lovely, huh? You've all heard this. They depict calls in our time for societal empathy and compassion as, quote, the work of manipulative progressives trying to trick Christians into supporting progressive policies they don't like. That's the purpose of empathy, according to them. Everyone's favorite business tycoon, Elon Musk, a national figure not known for his compassion, similarly writes, Democrats are succumbing to suicidal empathy. The fundamental weakness of Western civilization today is empathy. and Charlie Kirk, who's being memorialized today, the right-wing polemicist whose life was just tragically ended by an assassin's bullet, an act, of course, of heartless and inhumane violence, which we all must condemn. We must show compassion for he and his family. But he similarly recently said, just weeks ago, I can't stand the word empathy. Actually, I think empathy is made up. It's a New Age term that does a lot of damage. Dear friends, we Unitarian Universalists and others of goodwill face, as you all know, dire cultural headwinds right now as we try passionately to persuade our culture of the value and the virtue, indeed the absolute holy necessity of more empathy and more compassion in human affairs and in governmental policy. Our work to change the moral tilt and tone of our culture is massive. And we all must be about that work because the stakes right now are so incredibly high. You all know this. We are facing incredible danger. I want to end this morning by telling an old Hasidic tale by Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel, who reminds us of the power of empathy. The story goes that back in the days of the Roman Empire, a young Jewish man in Jerusalem wanted to journey to the great city of Rome, which was then the bustling capital of the world as he knew it, a terribly exciting, adventurous place for a young man to be. His mother, as mothers are wont to do, protested he should not go because of all the dangers and difficulties of such a trip. But how will you manage, his mother asked. What will you eat and where will you sleep? Well, her adolescent son, of course, had no satisfactory answer to these questions. Yet he persisted, pressing his case to go to Rome. Finally, his mother relented, saying, all right, perhaps you will make do, finding food and work. But for sleep you must take this pillow I have made, where you will lay your head each night and find rest. Well, the young son did in fact go off to Rome. And each evening after enjoying all the sights and the sounds and the food and all the rest of the busy city, he would venture outside the walls of Rome to the quiet countryside with his pillow and other sparse belongings to find a peaceful place to sleep. It went on like this for many days, but one night, just as the boy was falling asleep, his pillow caught fire. It burst into flames. Why? Elie Wiesel tells the story. The pillow caught fire because that night the temple in Jerusalem burned. And then Wiesel explains it was the flame of empathy, concern, and connection to his people which kept the Jewish boy awake that night. The pillow burned so he could not sleep. Wiesel, in his analysis of the story, says that all Jews, no matter how far they may wander from Jerusalem, mystically belong to one another in an indissoluble human community of connection, compassion, and concern. Just as Karen Armstrong says, all of humanity in the axial age belongs together. Thus, it was empathy, pure and simple, to the humans suffering back in Jerusalem that kept the boy awake all night. Empathy is the most important moral possession any person or culture can have because it keeps us awake and protective of the indissoluble human worth and preciousness of other persons and increases our humanity. Empathy is a gateway to goodness. It is a gateway to the holy city of your own life and the holy city of any culture's life. So, dear friends, may your pillows catch fire. Over your lifetime, may your hearts grow in their capacity to express and embody empathy for other human beings, no matter what their predicaments, no matter how different from you they may seem. May your pillows catch fire, and may you evermore become human beings who know deep to your heart your indissoluble connection to and belonging to all persons. May your pillows catch fire, and may empathy and compassion follow you all the days of your lives. We are standing on the side of love. Let's sing that song.
And Cindy and Sandy will lead us through hymn 1014.
Please stand. 1014. The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth is our hearts, is our guide. We are standing on the side of love. Hearts joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to complain. We are standing on the side of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are standing on the side of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim. We are standing on the side of love. We are standing on the side of love, of love.
And I leave you for the week with these words from the founder of Methodism, John Wesley. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, to all the people you can, for as long as you can. God bless. Be well. Be of good heart in these impossible times. Amen.
Again, I ask Mark to extinguish the chalice. There is too much hardship in the world to not find joy every day. There is too much injustice in the world not to right the balance. Every day, there is too much pain in the world not to heal each day.
See you in 4 weeks.
Yay!